So let's talk about the component form of a vector. A vector v is in standard position when its initial point is at the origin. So if its initial point is at the origin, that means 0, 0. A vector whose initial point is at 0, 0 can be uniquely represented by the coordinates v1, v2. That means if you take, like in the last example, we subtracted 0, 0 from things. Anytime you have an ordered pair and then you subtract 0, 0, that's just going to be the component form of a vector. So what we look at is the component form of a vector down here. It is with initial point P and terminal point Q. The way you find your vector is to take Q minus P, or sorry, your Q minus the P. So you always take your final point and subtract your initial point. So Q minus P, that's equal to your V1, V2. That is your original vector. Now your magnitude is going to be where you're going to take your, it's a double line. Magnitude is your length of a vector. Length of a vector. And the way you find your length is to take the square root of your Q1 minus QP, square it, plus Q sub 2 minus P sub 2. So it's basically your X sub 2 minus X sub 1, or your Y2 minus your Y1. But we're not necessarily talking about just X's and Y's here. We're talking about numerical values. That gives you the square root of V squared plus the square root of, plus V squared. V sub 2 squared. Can't even talk. If your magnitude is equal to 1, this is called your unit vector. If it's equal to 0, if and only if, this is called your zero vector. You really don't run into that very often. So let's look at example 2. We need to find the component form of the vector v, and we're going to have to find the magnitude. So the component form, if you look at your initial point and your terminal point, so this is your x1, this is your y1, x2, y2. To find your component form, you're going to take your x2 minus your x1, comma, y2 minus the y1. So let's plug in our values. We're going to say x2, which is -7, minus a -2, comma, your y2 minus your y1. So your vector form becomes a -5, comma, 6. So if we want to find our magnitude now, the easiest way to find our magnitude of our vector, remember the double lines, that's a nice straight line. Double lines of your magnitude of v, then you're just going to take the square root of your -5, and we're going to square that, plus the square of your 6. So let's go ahead and find the square root of 25 plus 36, which is just radical 61. So there we found our magnitude and our component form. So here's your component form. Your component form is written with these arrows. Your magnitude is using the distance formula.
Bring me clearance to the main office, please.
Thanks for that announcement, and thanks for that bell. So aside from the interruptions at the end, I hope example 2 worked out well for you.